as promised, here we are at Ein Gedi. Ein is the Hebrew word for spring, and Gedi for deer or goats. So the spring of the goats, the spring where goats can be found. We've walked about halfway up the cliff, the bluff that forms the edge of the Dead Sea. It's very hot. It's just after 8 in the morning. We were in the desert at 6 for sunrise, so it was dark when we left the college at 5:30, and now at just after 8 it's really very hot, and it'll get hotter as our walk goes on. It's dry, it's dusty, and without the irrigation system that is feeding all the palm trees below us, it would be completely barren. So a very inhospitable landscape, and how different from the other films that you have seen so far from up in the northern part of the kingdom, where it is very wet and very lush. At one time, people were up here, right up nearly towards the top of these bluffs. They didn't live here, but they did worship here. Between this point, there's 2 canyons with rivers, streams, some vegetation where they could water themselves and their flocks. And this site here goes back some 3,500 BC. So add that on to today's date. It's been here a long time. May well have been a ruin like this when David, who was yet to be made king, lived in this area and hid from King Saul. He had his army here. We read that he hid in the strongholds of Ein Gedi, and perhaps this is where he was. This is a harsh, dry environment. There is no survival here without water. It is still very hot on this day. Not a friendly place, but a place where people were able to exist with some kind of safety. Well, we've come down a little bit from that Chalcolithic temple, and the signboard here actually gives a clue as to how people survived with Wadi David, a chap whose name I take. And this was the area that he lived in. And in a moment we're going to see what is called the actual wadi, the spring. And it's one of those springs that never dries up, that is counted to be a real blessing in such a dry and inhospitable land. When you get a little bit of water, what a difference it makes to the landscape. Suddenly, as we approach the spring, it becomes very different indeed. One of people's favourite psalms is Psalm 23, the Psalm of David. And we're here now at the cave that is possibly the cave where David cut off the corner of the robe of Saul when Saul chased him. Psalm 23 is well known to us, and as a child I went on holiday down to the Romney Marshes, and there was lovely green pasture and lots of sheep. But I always had a bit of a problem in equating that with the landscape of King David. So I've had a look at Psalm 23 and had a look at the Hebrew. Alan, our guide over there, he might not like my translation, and you might not like my translation, but I've had a go at trying to find some nuance that takes it out of an English country setting into the kind of setting where David was. The Lord is my one and only shepherd. I shall lack nothing. He provides space for me to relax in desert oases with tender plants. He is leading me alongside rippling streams, and my very life is renewed. He embraces me with righteousness simply because he wants to. Even when I go through the dark, gloomy valley of death, no evil is great enough to make me afraid because you support me. I lean on you and am comforted in my grief. What a spread you set before me while my enemies look on. With spiced oil on my head, you make me stylish. My cup has more than I can drink. Yes, goodness and loving kindness shall hunt me down every day, and I shall rest in God's house always. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He makes me lie in pastures green. He leads me by the still waters. His goodness restores my soul, and I will trust in you alone. And I will trust in you alone. For your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home. He guides my ways in righteousness, and he anoints my head with oil, and my cup it overflows with joy. I feast on his goodness, and though I walk the darkest path, and I will trust in you alone. For your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home. And though I walk the darkest path, I will not fear the evil one. For you are with me, and your rod and staff are the comfort I need to know. And I will trust in you alone. And I will trust in you alone. For your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home.
We're signing out now, and God willing, we will be home back in Broxbourne later on today. I hope you've enjoyed snippets of our time in Israel.